Section, we're going to go over some of the top best practices for formatting your text, especially within a blog post, but a lot of these rules also hold true for things like emails. And also, these happen to be a lot of my biggest pet peeves that I've seen across many of our state pages, so I think these are super important. First off, up on my screen I have an example of what I think is really a pretty good blog post when it comes to formatting text. And here you can see what it looks like actually on the Arkansas State Facebook or state web page. And here's their blog section, so you can see here it has that featured content slider, it has the title, it has just a couple sentences to get your attention above the fold, and then you click on read more to see the full body of the call to action in this case. Now, a couple things that I'm just going to point out here that this does well that I would say fall under best practices is only use black colored font, please. I have seen a lot of people get very creative, which I love creativity, but not when it comes to font color, especially in a text like this. If you want to get creative with font, maybe do some sort of fun cover photo, like here we used red in the image to get people's attention, but when it comes to the blog posts, simple is best. I've seen some posts that will be one sentence red, the next sentence blue all the way down. I've seen some put in, orange pops here and there and random things. They just really make it much more confusing. If you look at all the top media sites across the board and look at the articles that they put up, you will notice that none of them are using colors other than black, and there is a good reason for that. So please just keep it consistent to only black font. Here you'll see there are a few pops of red there, which is what happens when you hyperlink a text so that they know that they can click on it. And that's fine. I think that still looks very consistent and professional across the board. So obviously if you're hyperlinking, it'll do that automatically, so no need to worry about that. But across the board, keep it to black. The next tip is I always justify text left. So that means doing a left align on these texts, which is really simple to do when you're in the text editor, so I'm not going to show that to you. I think it's pretty straightforward. Actually, maybe I will show it to you so that you can just see that. Let me go into, again, we're going to go to edit this page. And then you'll go into content, which is where you can tweak that. And here, so if you highlight the text to do a left align, it's just this button here as opposed to center align, which I would, again, stay away from center align. There's really almost no reason to use it. I think that even titles and everything, it just looks so much more clear and crisp when it's consistent. So I would just encourage you to keep that left align and you'll be better off. The other thing is to keep the font consistent. There is no need to go in here and start making some titles Times New Roman or getting creative with your fonts. I would encourage you to just use this paragraph setting so that it's consistent across the board with the fonts that we use across our website. Again, this is really a branding thing and a consistency thing that I think gives our website a very professional feel. You'll see across all of our pages we really are not using any unique fonts other than maybe headings, but those are even the same font, they're just different sizes. So that is another important one to keep in mind. The other is to use increased font sizes sparingly. You'll notice again in this post, the only thing that's of an increased size is the title, which I typically prefer. I think there are some situations where if you're doing a call to action that has multiple sections, perhaps you want to do a title in the middle that's like a different heading so that it makes it a little bit easier to read. That's okay, but again, I would not use it just to add diversity or something within your post. I would only really use it if you're going to be if you're going to have a title within it that breaks it up and just makes sense within the formatting of the post. So if you do want to draw emphasis to a sentence, here you'll see this sentence is bolded, which I think is appropriate. I would again use bold pretty sparingly because really you want to just use it to draw attention to important points. And if the whole post is bolded, then suddenly nothing is an important point. So again, use it sparingly, but if you have one or two sentences maybe within the post that are especially important or where you want to draw people's eyes, I think using bold is appropriate. Similarly, I think, in this situation, using italics on subheadings and things to kind of just give a little break for the eye and add maybe some element of interest without getting too crazy is okay. And then another, just I think probably the last thing I'll mention here is I do really encourage you to use bullet points and numbered lists when it's appropriate. I think that really just makes it easy for the eye to quickly look down the post and get an idea of what's happening without maybe even having to read the whole thing. And just keep that in mind. People have a very short attention span, and so the more that you can consolidate your posts and make it very easy for people to quickly get an idea of what you need them to do or the key points from the post, the better off you'll be. Another thing I'll mention that's done well in this post, because it's a call to action, whenever you're putting up a call to action, you really want to make it very easy for people to quickly identify who they need to be calling or emailing in this case, and doing a table like this is a good way of doing that. So that's, I think, a good example of that kind of table insertion there. And then I think there's one more post actually that I might show you that was a good example. I'm trying to remember what state this was in. I think it was South Dakota. We just put out a call to action, and I'll show you how that was formatted to give another idea. I'm not seeing it here. It must have gotten changed. Okay, so these are actually not really great examples. Here's maybe a better one. So this one's okay as well. Again, it has the featured content slider. It's mostly not bold. This one is increased in size, which I think is okay in this case because it's done sparingly, and it's really, the key point of this entire post is that we want you to be calling your district's representative and email the representatives below. So I think in that case that's still appropriate, and again you'll see a spreadsheet form with all the people listed. So that's also, a decent example here. I think this also, bolding this header and then having the text below in italics is a nice way of making it really easy again for the eye to find that. It's not buried. I like that it's indented because that again just makes it obvious that this is a subsection of this title. So just think about that. I think we've gone over really the key things to be thinking about when you're formatting text, and really it really makes sense for the most part. Indent where it's actually a subheading of whatever is above it, and use that text increase sparingly, keep to black, keep it justified left. Also, the last thing I'll mention is don't use all caps. I know the example that I showed you the first time had one sentence there. That's probably the one thing I would change about that post. I think all caps across the board just comes across as being unprofessional, and oftentimes in the online world people communicate that as you yelling at them, which we really do not want to do. So again, I think you can really communicate points just as well without using all caps for the most part, just by bolding or underlining and using those formatting tools properly. So that is all for this training.